Jonathan, you've advised on lots of exits, mine included. What's the one thing that you see in every successful sale?
Well, it's not exciting, but it's a really organised team. And that's both on the client side, so the management team of the client being well organised, working out what each person's going to do, and having a group of advisors who can support that and work with the management team. The reason for that is that once you've got an offer that you want to accept, you get the price you want, the buyer moves from trying to impress you as a target to testing the business, to finding out things that could be a problem, and it's meeting those demands, meeting those questions, which is one of the key things for the deal.
How does what a trade buyer wants differ from private equity, and how should generally leadership teams prepare to maximise value?
Yeah, I mean, with trade, one of the concerns is that it could be a competitor of yours, and I know that was a concern when we were running your deal. For your deal, we changed the non-disclosure agreement to put specific protections in about the buyer not contacting your staff. And one of the concerns was that they might use LinkedIn or social media to try and tap up some of the staff and maybe drop away from the deal later. So we protected that. So it's sensitive, confidential information, trade information, which you're going to try and protect against. On the plus side, for a trade buyer, there can be real synergies. And that was the case for your business. You sold to a technology platform who needed a skilled team to support their business plan and help them sell to better clients. So there was a real synergy there which added value. Private equity is much more run on the numbers. So their calculation is how they can scale the business. They will test your numbers much more thoroughly, and it will be a slightly more involved process. So you've got a sale deal where you're selling the business to the private equity house, but then you've also got a reinvestment deal where the management team who are going forward, and often the sellers as well, take an equity stake with the private equity house, and that has to be worked through as well. So it's slightly more involved from a legal point of view, but it can give more value. You just have to test those two different approaches.
Fantastic, thank you. Which team members of the sellers team are going to be most impacted by the sales process and, due diligence generally? And how do you think owners can best support them?
Yeah, I think if you ask any lawyer, they'll always say it's the finance director and the finance team who face the pressure first. Financial due diligence nearly always is the first stage of diligence, so it's testing the target's numbers, making sure that from a buyer perspective, you understand what it is you're buying and does it have the value you expect. So finance gets a lot of pressure initially, but that will extend to commercial contracts part of the business, so the sales side of the business, to HR, property, depending on how your business is made up. So coordinating that management team and deciding who you bring into your circle of trust. So who do you tell about the deal? Because a lot of business owners want to keep the potential deal quiet until they're sure it's going to happen. Realistically, you need your key people to be aware of the deal. Now, the obvious thing that goes with that is how do you keep them on board? So in most cases, you need to incentivize your management team, and you probably did that, didn't you, with your deal?
We did.
How did you approach it with your team?
So actually we put, there was several different things that we did, but the kind of core of it was an EMI scheme, so that there was going to be, there was a real incentive to keep to the numbers and to get us to the criteria for the deal.
Well, the great thing with EMI, of course, is they don't actually get shares until just before the deal happens.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't happen,
no,
you haven't given up your equity.
No, it's safe for everybody. Yeah, this is what I'm really interested in. The horror stories. What are the big no-nos in the transaction process? How do things get derailed?
Well, the real answer, which comes down to that first question around preparation, is problems on the seller side. So if there are problems with the business, if a risk issue is identified, there's a gap in the share history, or there's an employment problem, or the business is being sued by a client, then those are the things that will worry a buyer. So that may slow down the process, it may require more investigation. The other big issue is if the business performance slows. So one of the big challenges for any management team selling a business is they have to cope with the transaction and all the pressures that come with that, all the questions. They've also got to keep the business performing, because if the business slows from its planned trajectory, then the buyer asks why and starts to get concerned about it. Finally, it's coordinating this whole process. If you don't coordinate it properly and it becomes chaotic, the buyer will lose confidence. It will think the business isn't serious and the advisors don't know what they're doing.